First, introduce yourself, I suppose. I think that's a good way to start, and then we can get into the question.
Okay. Hey, I'm Greer Nakadegawa-Lee. I'm 16 years old and I go to Oakland Tech.
Cool. And where did your poetry journey start for you?
Um, I started writing in elementary school. I guess that's what I always tell people, but I only started doing it regularly in, I would say, sixth grade when we had a teacher from California Poets in the Schools come in. Um, and then he started like an after school class and I started going to that. And I started keeping a poetry journal and that's what really got me into it. Yeah.
And when did you start like officially calling yourself a poet?
Um, I honestly I never I didn't think it was that much pressure for me to start doing that, to be honest. What really what was the really big step for me was like making it a habit. Like because if I was like just writing occasionally, then maybe I was just someone who like wrote poetry sometimes, but if I was keeping a journal and I was writing all the time and like even if I was like sharing with other people too, then like I was like, well then I have no problem calling myself a poet if I'm doing that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
around like what point in your life did that shift over from like writing recreationally and occasionally to like more disciplined writing come?
I would say definitely middle school, probably sixth or seventh grade, because that was when I started like that was when I started writing more. Sorry, and when I started like performing sometimes. So
Cool.
sharing it with other people was definitely a big part of it.
What do you do or how do you make yourself become more disciplined into like writing regularly and things like that?
Um, so I've been writing every day for like a pretty long time now. I think it's like 2 years or something like that. And so I I think what makes it easy is that I put it at a specific point in my schedule, so I always do it before I go to sleep. Um, and it's just as much a habit as like brushing my teeth is. It's like something I have to do before I go to bed. Like it feels wrong if like I'm starting to fall asleep and I haven't done it yet. Like the same way if you were starting to fall asleep and you hadn't brushed your teeth yet. Like it would be like, wait a minute, this can't
Yeah,
happen. Like,
I think the most talented writers are like the most disciplined writers, and I think that definitely shines through with you. Um,
thank you.
what is special about Oakland poetry to you?
Oakland is like a city that encourages the people living in it to write and to create all the time. Like there's a lot of spaces for it and like a lot of places to share it with other people. Um, I I know that because I have been to a lot of events without like, and I'm like kind of an introvert and I don't like go to a lot of things, but I've gone to a ton of poetry events just because Oakland like has so many of them. And like, yeah, it's been surprisingly easy to like find other people who like poetry and stuff like that. And that's why like it's just really cool.
Yeah. And what about youth poetry in Oakland? What do you
Um,
find that is especially unique about that?
like kids are like fearless. Um, they kind of just do whatever. And then I feel like even by the time you're a teenager is when you might start to like lose some of that confidence and like you like would start limiting yourself and start saying, well, I can't write about that, I can't say that. But then that's where all the like programs and support that Oakland has like comes back in and that like creative community says like, oh, you can still do this, like no matter how old you are, like you're allowed and you can still create.
Yeah, and I think that's a really beautiful thing about Oakland too. Is and that's something that I think about all the time. Is like there's so many places in the country, so many places like even within the Bay Area and California where it's like we would have had to seek out these places like super aggressively, but or like they might not exist at all. But being in Oakland, we have like this incredible community that's just right there, and it makes it really easy. What do you think is the place of poetry in our current times right now?
I think it's like, if this makes sense, like the same as it's always been, but amplified. Like, because poetry can be like a source of like solace and like maybe even like distraction, but also like catharsis. So if you're, I mean, if obviously if you're looking for something that's like beautiful and emotional and like a distraction from what's going on, you could definitely find that in poetry. But also what you could find is like similar levels of like anger and like anxiety about what's going on right now and like our country's response to it. And I think that's really powerful.
What would being Oakland Youth Poet Laureate mean to you?
Um, I guess put really simply, like it would be like someone saying to me, like, your poetry can change the world, and then being given an opportunity to prove that.
Perfect. Thank you. All
Thank
very
you.
beautiful answers.